Hey guys, this is James from Man Tripping and Men Who Blog, and we are here on a product that honestly I've been trying to put together something like this for several years, but it never really came together right. And I think perhaps that's because the timing wasn't right for something that literally affected everybody. In the past, we've wanted to do things to support the hurricane recovery or support flood recovery, uh, and it just didn't have that kind of universal appeal. But between the fact that I absolutely love Alaska, Alaska is a great destination that we've been getting a lot of engagement from over the years, and frankly, the past couple of years, this is recovery has affected everybody from the people direct on the ground in tourism destinations to photographers that take pictures of people in the destinations to line cooks to drivers to everybody, including travel agents, including the people who ultimately write about travel. I know our all of us collectively have been hit in some way. Luckily, we are in a position where we have a footprint and an audience to go and talk about stuff that we like. And so it's been a really fun opportunity to pull together some of my friends for discussions about Alaska and recovery. And really, let's get people excited about traveling again. So, with that being said, you guys know me. My site's about Ben's travel and vacations and guys' weekends. But this is a guys and girls, family, no family. Everybody has something they can enjoy in Alaska. So that's enough of me talking. Let's go throw it to the group, and we're going to start with Melissa and Daniel from Roaming My Planet.
Hey guys, we're Daniel and Melissa from Roaming My Planet, and we are so excited about Alaska. We write about outdoor travel, road tripping, cruising. Actually, Alaska has been a bucket list item for us. We booked a cruise for our 25th anniversary that got nixed because of COVID, so we're ready to get out and go cruising again. Back to you, James.
Hey, what's up, guys? My name's Sujit from Guys Gab. We're a men's lifestyle site. We cover travel, and I went to Alaska for the first time on a cruise in 2009. Absolutely loved it, and always said I was going to go back. So hopefully, when things open up again, I can finally do that. I'm excited to talk to everyone about what makes Alaska so interesting.
Hey, everybody. I'm Tom Fisher, founder of bourbonblog.com. And I haven't been to Alaska. I'm taking a taste of an Alaskan rye whiskey to taste it and to travel in my taste buds. It's called Rackline Rye. It's from Port Chilkoot Distillery in Haines. But I'm so excited to learn more about Alaska and hopefully from this dialogue, I'll be there. I feel like I'm already there tasting this whiskey, but I'll tell you where I was recently. And Heather and Flow Voyages helped us out. We were everywhere from the Czech Republic to Germany and Hungary, and that just went great. So this was only about 2 months ago. Had a great cruise. Heather helped us out to get that. So thank you, Heather, and can't wait to see what's next here.
Hi, I am Heather with Flow Voyages, and I am a travel advisor. And we've been talking a lot about Alaska. So many people interested in going to Alaska. There's so many different itineraries too, depending on whether you want to do a shorter route and a round trip, or if you want to go straight up to Anchorage. So I can help you out with any of those, or if anybody has any questions during this time, feel free to ask.
And then Nikki is actually in the car right now, so I don't know if she's able to see that she's up. But Nikki, are you there?
I am here. Like you said, I'm in the car. I'm road tripping as normal. So I am the founder of Little Family Adventure. We are a family travel and active lifestyle site, and we promote anything and everything to get families outdoor and traveling. Our motto is "No Child Left Inside." And I recently actually went to Alaska for the first time without the kids back over Labor Day weekend. I have a good friend who lives in Anchorage, and I went up and helped her work at the Alaska State Fair in Palmer, and then took a couple of days, explored in Anchorage, Palmer, and in the seaport town of Seward. Had a great time. Was really excited about seeing all kinds of sea life and land animals, and saw some very unique things, especially an animal that predates saber-toothed tigers and woolly mammoths of all things. So it was highly unexpected, and I can't wait to go back. Back
Very
to you,
cool.
James.
Very cool. And then last but certainly not least is Mickey from Huna Totem, and he's representing Icy Strait Point, but also he has had some exciting news this week that expands. I'm not sure if your role's expanding across the state or if you're just partnering with people across the state, but he found me, or we found each other, I don't know, about 2 years ago. And I was like, oh, that looks like a pretty cool place. And then just, piece by piece, as he's, dripped things over the years, and kept me as well as everybody around us excited about seeing Icy Strait Point. Frankly, I tell you, I look forward to going back to all the core cruise towns like Juneau and Sitka and Skagway and stuff. But if there's honestly one place that I am most excited about visiting, it is Icy Strait Point, because literally you guys put everything there, including the stuff that's, that makes it special, like actually being able to be an ambassador for the culture and focused on sustainability and those kind of things. So I am so excited. That's why I have this background here. They have a awesome high-speed gondola that's set up. But rather than me talking about it third hand or second hand or whatever hand it is, Mickey, why don't you talk a little bit about why Icy Strait Point is so cool and what people would see when they go up there this year?
Well, James, thank you for having us on your program today. Obviously, I'm your boots on the ground here in Alaska. So we are up in Alaska. I'm in Juneau, Alaska today. And Juneau is, of course, the capital of Alaska, but it's also the headquarters for our Huna Totem. And at Huna Totem, we represent 1,450 Alaska Native shareholders that own Icy Strait Point, which is really a world-class destination. It was named Port of the Year by Seatrade in 2020, and also just named by New York Times for 2022, the top 52 destinations in the world of change. We're number 11 on that list, and part of that is because of that gondola system that you see behind James. So James put up a little bit of a background for us, but we put in a beautiful 2 high-speed gondola systems in the last year over the pandemic, and we're very, very excited about that. It's the first in the state of Alaska, and one of them carries guests from port to port. So we have two ports, 2 large cruise ship destinations at Icy Strait Point. And when we built the second port, we had the option of adding 100 buses or putting in a gondola system. So we really believe in guest experience, and we believe that buses are no fun. So we thought, why don't we just put in a gondola system? And then when we said we're putting one, why not just do 2? When in Alaska, you do things big. So we put one to the top of the mountain, and James is very familiar. And many of the guests coming to Alaska are familiar with Icy Strait Point's largest zip rider in the world, called that goes from the top of Huna Mountain and drops over a mile. It is something that you will never forget if you come to Alaska. But really, I think for those coming to Alaska, there's so many things that you're going to come and see that really you have to divide your time. Icy Strait Point is also known for the most whales that you can see anywhere in Alaska. And we just have this huge population of humpback whales that feed right outside of Glacier Bay, which is where our Huna Tlingit are from Glacier Bay. But that is nutrient-rich water that feeds and attracts hundreds of whales every year. Have spectacular whale watching. A lot of people come to Alaska to see bears. Coastal brown bears is what we have, the larger bears, brown bears in Alaska. So it's just a really rich opportunity to have what I like to say a life-changing experience when you come to Alaska, regardless of whether you're coming to Icy Strait Point or any of the other Alaska ports. It's really a magnificent vacation experience. And this year in particular, Alaska is really going to be a safe haven. Many people are staying closer to home. It's a familiar place to come, shorter travel times, and Alaska has been number 1 as far as states with most vaccinated and also people that are healthy, because we have lots of space. I think it works out to be you can have like 300 acres to yourself for every person in Alaska. So lots of open spaces. Obviously,
Well,
James, I look forward to everybody's questions as well.
So So I apologize. I was trying to get your awesome video website up there, but apparently my system has crashed. So I apologize that it's not a great video. But make sure you go to icystraightpoint.com to check out some video. But there's lots of reasons I think to go to Alaska, and that's kind of one of the things that really excited me about the state. Certainly, cruising is awesome, but we have a series of blog posts on each of our sites that talk about kind of why we are so excited about Alaska. And I think for me, one of the things that makes it who just dropped off is that there's literally history and authentic culture there. I think you can go to different places around the country and you can see, a guy in Louisiana that's, pretending to be a Cajun, or you can go to into New York and see somebody who's maybe dressed up as a as a Dutch settler. But when you go to Alaska, there's literally people who still live and breathe the traditions and who are connected with their ancestors and connected with the importance of the land. I know during your press conference, I think 2 years ago, you said that the wind started blowing from Glacier Bay right as they were doing the first shovelful, and that was symbolic and really connecting you guys with the culture. But that's something that's true. Even if you go up to I think pretty much anywhere in Alaska. So that's one of the things that makes me excited about Alaska.
Yeah, Alaska itself has really over 230 distinct different cultures and languages throughout the state, and also cultural traditions. Hunatoden represents the Glacier Bay region of Alaska, but even within the state, you can divide it up into 12 core major regions. But the Tlinkits stretch from Ketchikan in the south up to Yakutat and Hubbard Glacier. But even within that, they're what we call village, now defined as village tribes or village corporations now, that represent the people that are from places like Haines, Ketchikan, Sitka, totally different tribes with totally different traditions. And I think one of the coolest things is, as you look around the world, you talk about Aboriginal, original people and lands. There's only about a handful of places that you can name around the world where the original people are still practicing their traditions. And Alaska is one of them. And many people don't know when you come to Alaska that you are really, all the lands that you look at have been homelands of native people for tens of thousands of years, and those practices are still happening today.
That's awesome.
I actually have a question for you, Mickey. When we were up there, we went to Endicott Arm.
Yeah. Yep.
And it gets a little confusing with how many, what glaciers you're seeing. I understand it's Endicott Arm, but what is that, a bigger part of something else, or?
Well, basically,
you have Glacier Bay, and then
so when you come up to Alaska, we would say every cruise to Alaska has a scenic ice day of some kind. So Endicott Arm is just south of Juneau. It's off of the Stevens Passage, and it's probably one of the more narrow channels that you can go into. It's just a spectacular sailing because the walls of a glacier-carved valley or a fjord is really very vertical. And so that particular sailing is really quite dramatic just because of the way it's so vertical around you. Inside of the Endicott Arm, some people still take cruises. Just north of Endicott Arm is Tracy Arm Fjord. So there's a little split at the channel, so you might see that name, but that's also in that Endicott area, and it sits on the edge of the Canadian Rockies technically. So you're on the ice field that's flowing down from Canada across the border into the U.S. So and then as you go north, you also have Glacier Bay, and Glacier Bay is probably the most iconic. I was just talking about this at lunch today. It's iconic in name, but now to get to some of the glaciers, you're really sailing over 65 miles because of recession. So when you turn into Glacier Bay, where it starts, you've got almost a day sailing, to get to where the glaciers are. Grand Pacific Glacier being the largest, the very top end of it, and it doesn't look like a glacier at all. It looks like a big gravel pile. And that's because the toe of the glacier is sitting underneath rock, or what we call moraine. And as it's retreated, you just see the rock. You have to look up the hill to see the ice. And then you have the Marjorie Glacier, which is there as well, which is probably one of the only glaciers in the park that's still calving. But one of my favorites is Hubbard Glacier. It doesn't have the spectacular sail-in. It's the glacier that you're going to go to on a cross-Gulf sailing. So if you're going up to Seward or Whittier and down into Vancouver, those particular cross-Gulf sailings go to Hubbard Glacier. It has a spectacular 7 miles wide spread of ice, and it has the most vertical, tallest spires, some of them over 450 feet. And also, it's the only glacier that we can really name in Alaska that has been advancing. So as we've had a shift in the climate, what's happened is that particular glacier used to not get very much snow. It has a very large collection zone off of what's called Mount Walsh, but it stretches over 76 miles of collecting snow. And it used to be that the coastal glaciers got more snow, which created more ice. And as the weather has changed, the coastal glaciers now get less snow and more rain. And at the higher elevation where Mount Walsh is, now you're getting 400 plus feet of snow every year. And normally it was too cold up there to snow previously to the change in the climate. And so it was only getting 4 to 6 inches of snow. It was just too cold there. So now we're getting a lot more snow up there, which is causing Hubbard Glacier to advance. And Hubbard really is spectacular. If you want to see a calving glacier and you want to see ice pack in the beginning of the season, that's a real cool time. I like those shoulder seasons, especially in May. If you're going to go into cross Gulf, you just see the contrast in color, especially up at Hubbard. But I do a trip every year. I live here in Juneau, and Tracy Arm, I can get on a small boat and go there for the day. And I do that at least once a year, if not more. Almost every visitor that comes to see me personally in Alaska, I get on that boat and I go to Tracy Arm. It's a spectacular sailing. You have wildlife, some spectacular wildlife viewing along the way. And always around the bay of Holcomb Bay, where the entrance is to Tracy Arm, is there's a high population of whales there as well, humpback whales. And usually in the right time of the year, salmon start to run. You get into the late June, July run, you start to get the migratory pods of orcas, and you'll see those as well around the Holcomb Bay entrance at Tracy Arm. And that's also where you would split a little bit south to Endicott Arm. I probably didn't answer your question. I went and talked about a lot of stuff.
No, you did. I just was wondering more about the different glaciers because, you know, we were supposed to go to Hubbard, I think, and then Endicott. We ended up going to Endicott Arm, and I didn't know, like, is there one that's better? What's the difference between them? So, no, actually, you answered very well. Thank you. I learned a lot from that.
Yeah, and I didn't even talk about the actual main glacier at all, actually, which is Mendenhall. So when you come to Juneau, most people go to Mendenhall Park, the national park, which is where the Mendenhall Glacier is, and that comes off of the Juneau ice field. And I would recommend a couple of things. I mean, if you're going to come to Alaska, divide your time. Your ice port is really Juneau. It's where ice is most accessible. So you have some great tours that allow you to get up on the ice. If you're crazy about the dog sledding, that's really a fantastic trip. You have to spoil yourself a little bit because it is expensive to take a helicopter ride and get up on top of the glacier. There's also a plane flight you can do down to Taku Glacier, which Taku Glacier sits across from the Taku Lodge, and that's a really cool trip there as well. And one of my favorites is the Alaska, it's called Jet Boat. And what they do is they take you up the river alongside the toe of the Taku Glacier and the Norris Glacier, and that's probably a really spectacular trip as well. But when you get to Juneau, you're going to want to make sure that you're getting close to ice. The ice itself is only about 10 miles away from the port, so literally it's an easy jog to get up to Mendenhall Park. And I really recommend that you do some other things as well while you're in town, but go back to the ice and go see it, Mendenhall. And I always recommend to guests that have been there before is look at your pictures before you come to Alaska, and then stand in the same place and go take the same picture. Because what you'll see is Mendenhall Glacier is moving back about 1 foot per day, so it changes dramatically over a year. So,
yeah, I looked at pictures that we took in 2018, I think it was, and looked at some pictures from last year, and it was pretty shocking how different it looked, even from, I don't know how far the lodge or the viewing area is from the glacier, but maybe at a mile away. But it was discernibly different even just a couple years later.
Yeah, so you look back roughly, I think it's around 54 years and the ice was essentially at the toe of the ice was at where the visitor center is now.
Oh my
So
goodness.
and now you have to look quite a ways across Mendenhall Lake to really see where the ice is.
Now, one thing I do want to interject. I know Heather brought up the fact that we had our tour, our itinerary changed a little bit. One thing I think is important to have people understand is that, number one, you're on a cruise. Literally any day can change to anything. But I don't know that there is. Especially if it's your first time. I don't know that any of the glaciers that they'll replace them with, you'll be disappointed with. There's certainly things that you might say, oh, that one has that feature, that one has that feature. And we were, I think, initially disappointed that we went to Tracy Arm because we hadn't, I don't know if we went to Tracy Arm or we went to Endicott. But the initial disappointment, like, oh, well, that's not what we hoped to do. The reality, we had a freaking amazing time. And I think that's what's really important is to understand that things will change and things can change, but it's not like you're going to get, hopefully, an itinerary that doesn't go to something awesome in exchange. And, an agent like Heather can help you, figure out a tour that's going to be better for the right time of season. And, Mickey, if I recall correctly, your wife's a travel advisor also. And, it's really important to work with somebody who knows what they're talking about and knows where you're going so they can help pick the right one for the right season. Like you mentioned with the calving, doesn't happen the same amount throughout the year. So if that's what you really want to do, pick the right cruise that goes to the right place.
Yeah, and it's all about timing in Alaska. And no matter where you go in Alaska, it's going to be spectacular. I like to say when you go to cruise, I mean, there's fun sailings. I call them like fun and dumb runs down like in the Caribbean, where you get on the ship and you have a lot of fun and you don't really remember it after you get off. But you have iconic destinations where there land on both sides, and Alaska is one of those. Like especially doing cross Gulf, you sail out of Vancouver, cross underneath Lionsgate Bridge, and then up through the Narrows and start head up through Georgia Strait and Seymour. That's just a spectacular sailing. And when you do it on the southbound, it turns into a spectacular sunset. It's right off the back deck. It's probably one of my favorite sailings in all the world, doing that cross Gulf and that inside, what they call Canadian Inside Passage on the inside of Vancouver Island, Johnstone Strait, which is just spectacular. But then once you get up into the Alaska Inside Passages, you can spend all day on the edge of the ship, and you're going to see beautiful wildlife. Sometimes people complain it's too small, and that's because you're up at deck 13. But you really get down close to the water when you go on whale watching trips.
That's what I was. Oh, I was going to say that, Mickey, that if you are booking, you should try to book as low as you can if you have a balcony cabin.
Yeah, I do like that. I also do recommend, though, that you pick the season that is particular. We call it the Big Five in Alaska, right? So if your Big Five is bears, you need to be coming in the middle of the season when the salmon are running. So into mid-July, first part of August. You come before that, and your likelihood to see a bear is probably about 5%. Like, it's really, really tough. And that's because those bears are still coming out of hibernation. They're coming from the highlands. They're eating grasses. They're getting skunk cabbage, getting their system up and working before they go and start pounding the salmon. So, and then once they come to see the salmon, they're down in the creeks and the rivers, and they're very predictable. And that's what makes good bear watching, is when you know where they're going to be. And a lot of times salmon runs are shared by different bears at different times of the day. So depending on when you arrive, what you'll see, but you're usually more guaranteed to see bears if you're running with the salmon.
Now, Sujit, I don't know, when you went on your cruise, did you have a balcony cabin?
Yeah, actually, I think I did. Yeah, I figured I'd board for that one because, it's Alaska.
Exactly. I was going to say, I had a really rough time going to sleep, not just because of the light.
Oh, okay.
Because I wanted to see everything passing by. Because just like you said, going through those narrows, there's land and then there's tons of nature just going right past you. And I'm like, I don't want to miss a thing.
Yeah, no, I had my binoculars at the ready, just kind of watching everything, and it was great.
And you can definitely see stuff. I was amazed by what you could see from the balcony, because I was not. I mean, I heard people talk about you can see whales or see this or see that, but you actually can. You have to be looking out pretty good. But I tell you, it is pretty remarkable, pretty special when you're sitting there eating your smoked salmon for breakfast, and all of a sudden you see, an orca out the side window.
Yeah, we like to say it's not the zoo though, so it's unpredictable.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to put yourself in the path of opportunity, which is if you want to see bears, booking a bear excursion is going to be important because you can't guarantee it. And usually, if you see a bear along the shoreline from the ship, it's relatively small. It looks like a moving rock. A lot of times, people will say, "Hey, there's a bear," and you're like, "No, that's really a stump. It's a rock over there." So,
Now, on the subject of bears, though, I definitely want to give you a chance to give a plug. I know you have to leave it a few moments, but I definitely want to make sure that you're able to talk a little bit about the. I'm horrible with pronunciation, so I apologize. But the Dayon Corporation up in the northern part of the state, and kind of how you guys are working together to really expand some of the good work that you guys have done with Huna Totem, but make it something that's more accessible for everybody and opening up areas of the interior that people might not be able to see normally on just a cruise.
Yeah, so we did a partnership with Doyon, which is also another native corporation. It's a regional corporation up in the interior of Alaska. Their region represents about 150,000 acres. 150 million acres. They own approximately 12 million acres of that up in the Denali and northern region of Alaska. Which also includes the Yukon River. And Yukon is just a really iconic place. And one of those areas of the state that is really underdeveloped. It's really spectacular, though. So we're very excited about our partnership with Doyon because we're really excited about promoting what we've done at Icy Strait Point through cultural tourism and to build that as a model across the state. And also to look at areas across the state like the Yukon River, other areas that we believe are just as beautiful, if not more beautiful than Denali, but guests haven't had the opportunity to get there yet. So there's some really cool things around the state. And their area right now is also very spectacular for people who would like to see northern lights. I wanted to mention that after Heather's comment about the lights, because a lot of people come to Alaska. The number one complaint we get in the state is that I didn't see the northern lights, but they came in the summer, which we have sun almost most of the time, right? So it makes it very difficult to see northern lights when it's not dark. So if you want to see that from a cruise ship, you're going to have to maybe come in a shoulder like a season in late September, or just pack yourself a trip up to Fairbanks in the Doyon region and go see some northern lights where you're guaranteed a spectacular show in the winter months. They guarantee it. If you stay 4 days, you'll see it for sure. So, but we're very excited about our partnership and about culture tourism and where we're going to be able to take the state and represent Alaska's Aboriginal people. So it's a really cool joint venture with Doyon. They also operate inside of the park, so they own a fantastic place. I highly recommend it, called Kantishna Roadhouse, which is one of the only hotels inside of Denali, the park. And it sits on the edge of Wonder Lake. So it's the closest place that you can be to the peak of Denali to stay. And it's about 90 miles into the park. So you're going 90 miles into the lodge. And it's very, very, very cool facility that they have up there. And they also run the Airmark contract with the park itself. So when you go into Denali, you're going to meet some people that are from Doyon and from Alaska there. So that's very, very cool.
Okay, I have a question for Mickey as well. So I will say I have been to Alaska, but I've only dipped my toe there. I was there for 24 hours for a media tour with a brand. And so I got to visit North Pole, Alaska. And I got to see some of the sled dogs and some reindeer. And we're big, huge outdoor people. We love to see all the nature and the animals. And I'm totally going to bomb this pronunciation, but I wanted to hear from you about, is it Chichagof Island?
Chichagof Island.
Chichagof. I would love to hear about that.
Chichagof Island. Well, Chichagof Island is where Icy Strait Point sits.
Okay.
So Chichagof Island basically sits, it's very interesting in Alaska that you have roads in the lower 48 and we have waterways. So it sits along the body of water called Icy Strait and also Chatham Strait. And technically, a strait it connects two bodies of water. That's technically the definition. So when Vancouver came up, he named Chatham Strait because not that it connected two major bodies of water, but because it was a major body of water itself with depths most of it well over 3,000 feet. So it's a very, very deep channel, and that runs along us at Chickasaw Island. But one of the unique things is that we sit across from Glacier Bay. And because of our proximity to Glacier Bay, as I mentioned, you have glaciers that have been bleaching, if you will, off sediment or flour. That flour is very, very rich in nutrients. And so it feeds the water. And you have this natural flushing that happens from the Pacific or the Gulf of Alaska that runs inside that channel. So because of those little things that are happening from the glacier side and the exchange of water, it creates a huge amount of wildlife. So we have roughly about 200 whales that call Chickasaw Island and the body of water around it home. So every year we see spectacular whale shows. Salmon runs are rich through those waters. In fact, you can see the cannery in my background behind us. That's one of our iconic facilities. It was put everyone to work in Chickasaw Island for many years. It was formed in 1912, but after the cannery and the quota system came in from the state of Alaska in 1954, it closed. But there were roughly about 57 main fishing vessels that were harvesting salmon in that channel, which now is not fished on commercially, but now is a hotbed for your orcas, your sea lions, and your whales, humpback whales. So it's always a spectacular show any day of the summer. And I like to refer to those moments as timeless. Like if you've been to Alaska and you saw whales breaching or even feeding, we have bubble net feeding that happens, and you saw that when you were young, you come back and it will take you back, and it never gets old. I have a daughter who's 12, and we live in Juneau, but we go to Icy Strait Point almost on a weekly basis. And when we touch shore, the first thing she says is, "See you, Dad." She goes and hops on the back of a whale watching boat, and she sits on the back outside. I don't care if it's blasting rain. She's on the back of the boat with her little camera, and she's calling it. She's watched them enough to watch their behaviors and knows where they're going to move and where they're coming up next. But we have large pods of whales as well. So you've got groups, we call them trumpeter whales or lead whales, and they'll lead a group from 10 to 12. And if you're a whale crazy, I really recommend coming to see us at Chickasaw Island in early season, because the whales are coming from Hawaii. They don't feed in Hawaii. They lose about 50% of their body mass in Hawaii. So they're going to come here and they're going to eat, and they eat all the time. But when they first arrive, these large groups form together. So you can get whale groups of 25, 30 whales all moving together. And then they split up as the season, or more trumpeter whales arrive, and then they split up into groups of 10, 12. I don't know if you know the artist Wyland. Wyland comes up every year. He's very famous in Hawaii for his murals. He actually built a statue that we have now at Icy Strait Point of an orca at Keat Plaza, which is Keat was the Tlingit word for orca. And he built a 29-foot statue of an orca that he and I went out and saw the previous year, and was so influenced by it that he built a statue for us, and it is fantastic. But he said there's, in his opinion, he watches whales. I mean, Maui's a different experience, because there you're getting a lot more breaching happening, just because you have men showing off, and that's where it happens down in Hawaii to get lucky, right? So when they come back up here, they're feeding, but you just get these large groups and bubble net feeding groups. And if you see a bubble net feeding group, that's spectacular. They're very rare. Like they say, there are 7 lead whales in Alaska, and we usually have 3 or 4 groups. So 3 out of the 4, 3 or 4 of the 7 trumpeter or lead whales are actually in our waters every year. So that's a pretty high percentage.
Well, whale watching is on the top of our bucket list. And if you're someone who wants to see like bears and whales, is there a particular season that's best? Do they kind of go hand in hand, or do you have to like decide, okay, I'm going to go see the bears, or I'm going to go see the whales?
Well, that becomes tough. I think that you should do a back-to-back is what I recommend. So do a northbound, southbound, just stay on the ship. So because what happens is you have places that you're going to see bears, and those places like at Icy Strait Point is also where you see whales.
Okay.
So you can, if you really want to see it, I would double down. But I like the end of July first week in August. Because of climate change, we have seen a little bit of a shift. So it used to be that the bears were out in salmon about 2 weeks earlier. It would used to say like you come middle of July, and I like to say that you want to shift that a little bit. So I would shift it more towards the August timeframe. And traditionally in Alaska, that's when we get our better weather. So if you're trying to avoid rain, that would be the time.
What about early September? What do you actually have fall colors or?
No, we don't have any. We have basically pretty much Sitka spruce and evergreen trees, right? So western hemlocks. So we don't get the fall color. What you get in September, though, is you're on the end of the feeding season. So everybody's running around feeding. Your orcas are very active during that time. You get a lot of whale activity during that time. Bears are still out in September because they're doing kind of the cleanup. They're not always as dramatic in the river because the salmon aren't there. But also it's your chance to see northern lights. Probably one of my favorite cruises of all times was a sailing. It's historic because about, I don't know, it was like 1:20 in the morning. The captain pushed the all call button, which if you ever get on a ship, you never push the all call button. You'll do zones, but you'll never do an all call. But he called the entire ship and he said, ladies and gentlemen, like, I'm waking you up. And it was because northern lights showed up, and he stopped the ship, turned off the engines, turned off the lights, which is very rare to sit in the middle of a channel. We can do that in Alaska. We just don't have the kind of movement you'd have out in the ocean with the water, but woke everybody up, crew, guests. Turns out that was actually one of the highest revenue sailings of all times. Still holds the record in Alaska. So they were quite happy guests.
And that was in September?
That was in September, yes. So
well, hopefully it happens there this year.
Yeah, we've had good northern lights showing the last couple of years in that September timeframe. You have to be, just kind of, I would say there's never a guarantee, but because you have to be in the right place to be able to see, northern lights, have a good northern view. Sometimes we see them roll from the west, from east to west. So sometimes you just have to be in the right place to see it. But you're getting lucky. The only thing you have to know about that time of year is that you're getting shortened days. So your daylight hours, we get into late August, early September, and we start losing 5 minutes of daylight per day. So we're going the other direction right now. So we're gaining daylight as we are here in Alaska right now.
I think that sounds pretty exciting.
I think going to Alaska in general, no matter what time of year, is exciting.
I think so. Someone said, they cruised in like 2004. I don't remember what year it was. I was trying to figure that out in my head, but I cruised to Alaska and then I moved here. So, it will take a little piece of your soul, and I always say there's reverse seasons too. So, if you're not coming to Alaska in the winter, you should be hitting South America, Antarctica when you hit reverse seasons, because those are also places that will change your life and iconic places around the world. So.
Exactly.
Well, I don't know how to have a conversation after all the stuff you've laid down like that. You've done an awesome job getting. We should just wrap up now because I don't know how any of us can top what you've been saying for the past few minutes. But no, I don't. So you've been kind of quiet there over in your corner. I know you said you did a cruise a few years ago on was it Holland America Line?
Yeah, it was 2009, and we did a May cruise. So I was completely caught off guard. I had a big winter jacket I wore the first day off the ship, and I was like, oh damn, it's like 65 degrees out here. But it was cool. I mean, I saw tons of wildlife. We went to that Mendenhall Glacier, and actually all of a sudden everyone stopped and we looked up in this tree, and there was like a baby bear that I think was like 200 pounds, maybe like 20, 30 feet up. And everyone was like, holy crap, that's incredible. And, then got to see the glacier and stuff. I forget which other port we did, but we went to some like bald eagle habitat place where they were rescuing, and rehabbing some of these eagles that had gotten hurt, which was super wild. And that was what the whole trip was about us seeing stuff that we had, you really can't get a chance to see any of this stuff in the lower 48. So it was a really really interesting trip compared to all the, boring Caribbean cruises I've done in the past.
Yeah, that's another tip I would give you when you go to the park. There's a place called Trail of Time.
Okay.
And if you go walk the Trail of Time, especially in that July timeframe, they have black bears there. We have coastal browns, which weigh in about 1,600 pounds. So it's a totally different bear that you'd see on Chickasaw Island. We have the largest concentration of coastal browns anywhere in the state, whereas we have about one bear per every 1.2 miles. So as you're driving down the road and you see this big pile of bear scat or poop, as you might call it in the South, that just represents one bear, and you go another mile, that represents another bear. So there's lots and lots of bears, very large bears. But over at Mendenhall, they have the black bear. So you're going to see black bears, and probably what you saw was probably around what's called Steep Creek. Steep Creek has the boardwalks across the parking lot from where most people are going. So I always say, you're going to watch the crowd go right, you go left. And the one thing that drives me crazy about people when they see bears is the first thing they do is say, "Oh my God, it's a bear." And they shout it out. And that just means that the bear is like, "Who's this crazy freaking foreigner? I'm out." So you really have to say, when you see a bear, I always go, "Shh, shh, shh, let's all be quiet," and we just stop and stand. And usually bears are familiar. They've been raised around an Alaska tourist, so they know the drill. So as long as you're comfortable, you'll see them. But at Mendenhall is a place called Trail of Time. And if you walk Trail of Time in July timeframe into July, where the salmon start to run, you'll usually see bears up along the Trail of Time. There's a series of bridges that cross waterways that are all salmon runs. The other trick that I'll tell your guests is when you come to Mendenhall into the park, they have rangers that are at the park. And when you see a ranger walking quickly, that's because a bear has been identified and they're going that direction. So whenever you see a guy in a green jacket and he's making a move somewhere, he's making a move because somebody radioed there's a bear down there somewhere. And so you just kind of softly follow behind, and usually you get pretty lucky along the route there. So, but at Icy Strait Point, we have bear viewing platforms. So we take guests out to the places along Spassky River where coastal brown bears are hanging out. And that's always a fun show. So
I have to laugh. You said it a little bit ago. Oh, and that James mute me. The fact that people don't understand this and they hear it, but then they think something different. You said you guys call it poop down south. And when I was up there, everybody we met kept saying, "Oh, you Southerners." And I'm like, people down south, I'm like, wait a second, I'm not from the South. But just the fact that you call continental U.S. the South, I just think is kind of funny. It is the South to compare to you, but I don't know.
Yeah, so I mean, we always do this example in Alaska. It's like you take your hand and then make a fake gun, and then you turn that upside down, and that's really the state of Alaska, right? So you have the Aleutian Islands up here, and really, if you look right here, that's kind of where Anchorage is. And we're way down here. But even way down here, to give perspective, I've done a lot of work in Anchorage over the last year, but I was flying from Juneau to Anchorage, and I did roughly around 130,000 air miles just doing that distance. Because you go from Juneau and you're 1,000 miles, 1,200 miles roughly, I think, to Seattle. And you're roughly about 1,000 miles, give or take a few, depends on your route, air miles over the top of the St. Elias Range to Juneau, or from Juneau to Anchorage. So then you start thinking about, I'm going to go to Anchorage to Denali. You're moving another third. Yukon River actually sits right in the middle of the state, so it really is a massive, massive area. So when we talk about the lower 48, that's south to us. And as many of you know, also, it's probably one of the only places in the world that you can travel north and south and actually gain or lose an hour. So Alaska sits on its own time zone because it is so far out of the way. So we're an hour time difference from Seattle, even though when you come out of Seattle, Vancouver, you're sailing directly north.
Do you see a lot of people with spotting scopes out there?
You know what? If I see you with a spotting scope, I know you're serious. So you're not a pretender. So I encourage it.
Got one.
Yeah. So, I like I said before, I call it putting yourself in the path of opportunity. So that is that when you're going to go to a particular location, you come prepared. And I like to say that you not only need to be, physically prepared. I heard the comment about I brought my winter jacket. And what was I doing with the winter jacket? I mean, like a lot of times we find people don't realize that Alaska does have a summer. It gets into 80 degrees and they're not prepared for that. I see them get off with their, sorels, their hunting boots. And you're like, no, it's not snow. No, you're not going to see it. But also you need to be mentally prepared. And sometimes that means that when you come to Alaska, you want to see wildlife. You need to be patient. They're just not going to just walk out there. But also in those moments of solitude, you're going to find yourself in a different place, both mentally and spiritually, and that's pretty significant to what your Alaska journey should be about. And I think about last year, I went down and did a training event for Norwegian, and I was down in Arizona, and I thought, look at how dramatic the Arizona landscape is compared to Alaska. I think I was stuck on like Highway 20 or Highway 10 for like 45 minutes in traffic. And here in Alaska, you just don't have that. You have a lot more open spaces and vertical. I look across from my house to 4,000 feet of elevation, so, and we become numb to it because that's Alaska living. But when you come to Alaska, that's what makes it special.
Well, as somebody who loves the desert and loves doing off-roading, I know Sujit and I have been talking about doing an adventure in the desert here. Now, when I first came up there, well, when I go to BC or when I go to Alaska and I look around all the green is just absolutely fantastic. So if anybody who lives in Southern California or lives in Arizona and loves the desert, you will be just shocked by, a little thing like the fact that there's actually water on the surface. That seems like a really tiny little thing, but it's so amazing seeing creeks and seeing just brilliantly green, trees and stuff like that are all natural. So it's definitely something that's remarkable if you don't live in a climate that already has green like that. But one thing that we talk a lot about cruising, and certainly cruising is a big part of Alaska tourism. But I want to kind of leave it with kind of the other side of it. That if somebody doesn't want to do cruising, because I know people have different opinions on cruising right now, especially. But if they want to go see Alaska, what's some of the best ways to come up and see Alaska? I know there's fishing lodges, but could they just fly into Juneau and rent a hotel, or how does that all work?
Yeah, Alaska is accessible by air, and in the summer, we of course have Alaskan Airlines, which is fantastic. I think yesterday we just named number 2 airlines in the world for service and not losing your bags. So that's pretty good. We're glad they made it, because if you lose it in Alaska, it's never coming back. But they're a good choice, and you can get up to Anchorage. There are hotels. I'll just tell you that's a challenge, just because we are seeing in the summertime hotel prices start around $400 a night because of demand, and it will go up. We like to say it's very, very often in Alaska, you pay a 4-star price for a 3-star room. So it's just because that's what availability is. So that's why cruising is great, because you get the room and you get the food, and you're not sticker shock. As you travel the world, it used to be like I'd go to places like Hawaii and be like, oh my, I can't believe how much it costs for dinner. Now I go to Hawaii and I go like, I can't believe it's this cheap. And that's just because the cost of goods in Alaska, it all comes by ferry or by plane. Cost of living is extremely high, and that will be affected in the prices that you're going to pay for meals, hotel rooms, things like that. But I am a big fan of that. One of the great things about cruising is you get a taste of what it's like. But unfortunately, that ship has to set sail. And in Alaska, you do get late departures, 11 p.m. So you're getting to stay longer in a port. But sometimes you say, man, I'd really like to sample what it'd be like to live there. So you come and stay in a community. So in Juneau, for example, though, we're landlocked. We have 63 miles of road. So you're not going to get too far. You're going to get to experience different, hiking, great hiking, outdoor experiences, glaciers. But if you want to go to another part of the state, you're going to hop on a plane and go somewhere else. You fly up into Anchorage, you've got a lot more road there. Some great trips by RV. My family loves to do that. Get an RV right outside the airport, and take a roll up the as you know, Richardson Highway is fantastic. Go down south. Kenai Peninsula is one of the most beautiful parts of the state. So you really can't go wrong. Just expect that when you come up, especially in the summer, you're not the only one with that idea. So you're gonna be faced with other travelers.
Well, that was going to be my question is, I mean, obviously cruising is the way I want to go, but do you have very many people that actually drive in and do any RVing up there, like bring their RVs?
Well, it's been very tough, right? Because Canada's been closed, and so that's caused the RV traffic, those going up the Yukon Highway and Yukon Highway up through Canada, and then continuing on up into Alaska.
And you can't do it in Juneau.
We do get sometimes people put their RVs on the ferry.
Oh, okay.
They'll come and connect by ferry, but that's also that would be like the snail mail way to get to Alaska. So it's an extremely slow route to try to get here. It'd be faster to drive it than by ferry. But I do love there are RV rentals out of Anchorage, and that's spectacular. So you really can't go wrong. But really, if you want to get over to a place like Chickasaw Island, those places are remote, difficult to get to, unless you're going to come by cruise ship. So our guests are 99.9% come by cruise, and they enjoy the day. And in some ways, it's great for our community as well, because, as I mentioned, Hoonah is 730 people, and they're all Alaska natives, and they practice their own life and their own lifestyle after the cruise is gone. So it just allows that community to flourish because of the balance between cruise guest and community life.
Very cool. Well, I'm going to go wrap things up right now, unless anybody else has any other questions or comments. But also remind everybody to go visit Men Who Blog, guysgab.com, roamingmyplanet.com, and mantripping.com, as well as, obviously, Nikki had to leave, but littlefamilyadventure.com. We're running a giveaway where somebody is going to win a $100 Amazon gift card. And if they book with Heather, they can also get an extra $50 onboard credit. So make sure to go check that out. And then very shortly after this, we're going to be posting the special cruise deal that Heather has, which, Heather, if you want to give a little bit of a description of what that is, then we'll just close things out.
Well, okay. James and he's upstairs and I'm downstairs, so we can hear each other echo back and forth, which is aggravating if one of us is not muted. But no, right now, if you book, you can get extra perk of $100 per stateroom onboard credit, along with, depending on what you choose on your cruise, like if let's say you're not a drinker and you choose this other option of getting free photos and other things, you get another $100 onboard credit. You also get another 5% off of your cruise right now if you book with me for the next 60 days. Honestly, I wrote everything down, so we'll take a look at the stuff when it comes through, because my brain is kind of fried.
I just wanted to say that is actually an amazing deal. And for anybody who has not used a travel advisor, Heather books all of our cruises, and it's been amazing because I'm one of those that likes to stress out about everything and like major planning. So now when I book through her, I just give that all to her. She does everything for me. She lets me know what's going on, if there's deals, what's going on with the cruise lines. And I literally have no worries. She takes care of everything. And it's great to use somebody like that, because for you as the consumer, it doesn't cost you a thing.
Thank you.
Cool. Well, with that, I will let you have the last word, which I just said last word, so I guess I'm having the last word. But anyhow, have a great day, guys. Remember to check out the blog posts and our tweets and all that kind of stuff, because really we're having fun. We're a good group of people that likes to work together, but ultimately, this is to come together and support folks that haven't been able to work, that haven't been able to. Now that things are getting safer and hopefully opening up 100% this year or close to 100%. They also don't have the marketing budget necessarily to get people as excited about coming as I'm sure everybody would like to. So as long as we've got a platform, people want to listen to us. That's what we're here for. So if you are an Alaska tourism person that wants some exposure, wants some help, wants some support, please let us know, because we love what you're doing up there, Mickey, individually. But we also love that you're working across the state to help everybody. So that being said, I'm going to hit the end broadcast button and have a great day.